Baby is my third novel and the sequel of sorts to my debut novel, Amba, The Question of Red. It has many themes and aspirations, many of which are the fictions I've told and retold over a decade, about parents and children, origins, differences, margins, love, passion, illegitimacy, and belonging. If The Question of Red is the story of the mother and the father, For Baby is the story of the daughter. Toward the end of The Question of Red, which is the love story set against the backdrop of the Indonesian anti-communist mass massacres of 1965, we learn that Sri Kandi, or Siri, is a love baby of Amba and Bhishma, the protagonists of The Question of Red. They were violently separated in 1965, after which Amba found out that she was pregnant. Then she met the German-American social scientist Adalhard Eilers, who agreed to marry her and father her child. In For Baby, we learn that Sri Kandi only knows about the truth of her origins close to the age of 50. Now, I have been a single parent of a daughter for many years, and I also found out late in life that I was adopted. So parenthood and adoption have always been very important themes to me, a leitmotif, if you will. I've always been interested in how an adoption deeply affects all the parties involved, whether it be the adopted child, the biological parents, or the adoptive parents, especially if the circumstances of the adoption are difficult, complicated, or painful. It raises questions such as allegiance, trust, and the social gaze, and the question of what sort of fiction people resort to justify a life. At the same time, I've always been intrigued by the notion that children often cannot escape the fate of their parents, no matter how hard they try, and that the pain of historical trauma spreads from generation to generation. I think it was Herta Müller who said, "It often becomes the child's task to mourn because the parents can't, or they have their limits. They survive, but they are frozen, holding their breaths for 40 years, not really alive. It is a job of the children, representing the dead." Now, if in The Question of Red I found the way in, so to speak, through the Hindu epic Mahabharata as an entry point to talk about the war within a family and linking it to the official lies and propaganda constructed by the Suharto regime around the massacres of 65 to justify its dictatorship, in For Baby I found a way in through art. To me, looking at art is like looking at mythology. It is essentially about acknowledging different ways of seeing. Even within one person there reside multiple selves and identities. And it is this nature of seeing that allows Siri to make sense or even to make peace with her past and her parents' history and of her own relationship with history. She learns, for instance, to know her biological father Bisma, whom she never knew, through the act of imagining him, painting him. She pays eternal tribute to her father. Adopted father has taught her to see beyond the image, and she learns to understand anew her relationship with all the women in her life, her mother Amba, her stepdaughter Malia, and her best friend turned foe, Dara, a political activist who is the other protagonist of the novel. I created Dara because I wanted to tell the story of another type of modern Indonesian woman. On the surface, Siri and Dara couldn't be any more different. Siri travels, a creature of East and West. Dara is more firmly rooted. Siri has a thoroughly liberal, progressive, westernized upbringing, whereas Dara comes from a conservative Muslim background, but is liberal progressive in her politics. Siri is an artist, Dara is an activist. They're very different in personalities and background, but essentially fighting for the same values, freedom and democracy. So when intolerant religious groups threatened to ban Siri's exhibition in Jakarta, Dara and Siri have to put aside their differences and work together. Having these two characters, as well as the focus on art, allowed me to tackle further one more concern, which is rising intolerance. Between 2015 and 2017, when I was still living in Berlin, the world had suddenly gone dark. Democracies all over the world were tumbling. In Germany, right-wing extremism was on the rise. Trump happened, Brexit happened. Back home, there was a disheartening return to Suharto-era neurosis and repression. Society had become more polarized in matters of race, ethnicity, religion, and belief. And those were particularly bad years for art as well. Art exhibitions, transgender, cultural gatherings, public statues deemed pornographic were cracked down on. Anti-communism, anti-Chineses, and anti-LGBTQ were on the rise. Yet artists continue to wear the courage and intelligence of their resistance, as they've always done in the face of injustice and repression. This is why I wanted to tell the story of an artist and how artists can offer a fresh pair of eyes through which to see the world. And being in Berlin also allows Siri to draw similarities or differences between the way Germans, also plagued by a history of violence, and Indonesians deal with their dark past. How, indeed, do different generations and different societies process historical memory?
Thank you for viewing. We hope you have enjoyed our book awards showcase. For more information, visit us at singaporebookpublishers.sg.